Every year, this land is the setting for one of the great sights of the natural world, the migration of the wildebeest. Every year they leave these plains and start their march in search of the grass and water they need to stay alive. By the time they return here, they will have traveled nearly 2,000 miles. 250,000 will have been born, and as many will have died. They will meet disaster and death on the way, but nothing will turn them aside. This is the story of a journey that has taken place for thousands of years, every year. It is the year of the wildebeest. This is where the wildebeest live out their year, just south of the equator in an area of plains and bush country stretching for over 10,000 square miles to its western boundary, the waters of Lake Victoria. It looks peaceful enough now, but it had a violent birth. To the north and south, it is bounded by steep Rift Valley escarpments, and down in the southeast, standing silent now, are the crater highlands, the massive volcanoes that years ago created the plains that lie below them. This is the crater of Ngorongoro, the largest of the chain. Some 250,000 years ago, these volcanoes flung out ash which buried the hills and valleys as if they had never been, and created the flat grassland that is today the last of the Edens for the great herds of animals that graze across it, the Serengeti. Now the land looks as if it had lain like this forever. But standing watch over it is one last volcano, Oldoño Lengai, that is still active and still from time to time sends a puff of ash across the plains, a gentle reminder of the destruction that gave them birth. This then is the setting for the wildebeest's journey, a trek that will take them westwards towards Lake Victoria, then up towards the north, and finally will bring them back to the Central Plains. This is where they are now, and this is where our story begins. It is a story that involves vast numbers of animals, such as can be seen nowhere else on Earth. There are 18,000 eland. There are 200,000 zebra, garish and noisy. And looming bulky amongst them, 60,000 buffalo stolidly breathing their own dust. There are 8,000 giraffe, and below them 500,000 gazelle. And this is the creature that outnumbers them all, the least likely looking of the lot, the white-bearded gnu or wildebeest, an animal apparently designed by a committee and assembled from spare parts. A comic, and a knockabout comic at that, an engaging, unpompous creature often called, with affection, the clown of the plains. In the calendar by which man measures his year, it is May. For the wildebeest, it will soon be time for the great trek to begin. The rainy season has ended, rutting is about to begin, and so the young bulls try out their paces and each other. But for the older bulls, it is no game. Each bull fights to hold a territory on which he will collect his cows. He marks its boundaries by rubbing his face glands on the grass, a warning that beyond that point, the ground and the females on it are his. To other bulls, it clearly reads, "Keep out." But being wildebeest, the fighting is seldom serious. Often bulls will break off in the middle, pretending that they have seen a predator and must snort a warning to the others. It's a way of relieving the tension. In this case, a female rushes past with a calf. It's as good an excuse as any other, and one bull chases after her. By June, the bulls have divided up the plains with invisible boundaries. The wildebeest are clumped in small groups of females, each under the command of a bull. Only those bulls that own a territory are entitled to females, and to keep both, they're always on the move, circling their own small herds and foraging after extra females, cutting a new one out, pushing another back in, fighting other bulls. All this to ensure that next year's calves are fathered only by the best. For 6 months, these bulls have been building up reserves of fat, storing that energy which they will need in the next 2 months for the journey and for the constant fighting and patrolling and for mating when the females are ready. This one isn't, and decides not to cooperate by taking action as simple as it is effective. When the male gets too near, she just sits down. But while the wildebeest are absorbed in their own interests, the predators are pursuing theirs. The cheetahs are too lightweight to pull down an adult wildebeest. The 4-month-old calves are fair game, but even then the cheetahs must work in pairs, one to distract any protective adult, the other to go for the calf. And that is one young wildebeest that will never make the journey which is about to begin. For the past 6 months, the herds have eddied back and forth on the open plains. But the plains are drying out now. The water is getting scarce, and so the herds start to move off, heading northwest. It isn't a sudden start. They form straggling lines, drifting casually towards the edge of the plain. There is still grass to be eaten, and they graze as they go. A few water holes still have water, and they linger there. A brief resting place before the real journey begins. Then these last few holes dry up and crack in the summer sun. It is time for the herds to go. 1 million animals pouring off the plain in a jumbling torrent of legs, horns, and dust. Mile after mile they go, through the granite rocks that border the plains and into the bush country beyond. The west and the north have a higher rainfall and so more grass, and now the herds must find it. As soon as they reach a greener area and are able to slow down, the bulls start to mark out new territories, but there isn't time now to establish the boundaries clearly, and so they fight and skirmish even harder than before. And now the females are ready to mate. There are 350,000, and 90% of them will become pregnant. It looks like chaos, and in some ways it is, but it works, and the numbers prove it. There are so many wildebeest that they move over the land like locusts, searching for grass to sustain them. All the hoofed animals of the Serengeti are able to exist together because their needs are different. And there are over a dozen species, from the tiny dik-dik to the giraffe. The dik-dik's needs are as slender as itself. The giraffe feeds high above the rest on the leaves of the acacia, apparently not bothered by the thorns around them. Alongside, the buffalo eats coarse, rank grass, while the Thompson's gazelle looks for a short growth. The zebra can chomp and tear with its powerful teeth, and so make do with the strong, grassy stems, while the long, narrow face of the topi is designed to probe into the same long grass for the leaves that it prefers. The wildebeest offered a choice prefer short grass, but there are too many of them packed too close, so they eat everything and then have to move on, leaving behind a land laid bare down to the dust. But while they deprive some animals of food by moving into an area, others are deprived when they move out. A lion could hardly ask for more, one would think, than to live right here. And as long as the herds are here, the living is easy. But lions are territorial animals. They live and hunt within a territory of anything up to 150 square miles, an area that traditionally belongs to the females, but is guarded by the males. It's a safe place to rear their cubs, but it doesn't always provide enough food. Soon the herds will be forced on in their search for food, and the lions will be left with their larder suddenly bare. With the wildebeest gone, the lions will be forced to hunt those species which do not migrate, smaller victims which the adults often neglect to share with the cubs. Consequently, when the herds move out, they're passing sentence on these cubs. Half of them will starve. And so, tied to their territory, the lions can only sit and watch as the last of the wildebeest thunder past, away and out of reach. By July, the wildebeest have reached the western edge of the Serengeti. The land is drying up now, and the herds surge back and forth like a great tidal wave, staying close to the rivers and the pools that are shrinking away from them with every passing day. They have to come down to the river to drink every 2 or 3 days. And there are other creatures who watch and wait for them to come. The wildebeest are nervous because lions often ambush them at drinking places, but many of them have never seen a crocodile in their lives. Fear fights with thirst, and thirst wins. The wary and cautious are overruled by the jostling masses behind, and this time they wade right in. Now the attack will be easy, underwater and hidden from sight. A small price, really. One dead calf so that the others can drink. Crocodile teeth are ideal for gripping, but they cannot chew, so they have to tear the kill into pieces small enough to swallow. Once the grisly process of reducing it to manageable size has been completed, the calf doesn't last long, and the herd is still there, still thirsty. Perhaps the price will have to be paid again. Eventually, the herds move on, and the storks and the pelicans fly in. They've been watching the wildebeest because for them too, the herds are a source of food. Some of the shallow pools have been trampled to mud. The mud clogs the fish's gills. The fish come to the surface to breathe, and the birds pick them off. The pickings are plentiful, and not just in small mouthfuls. Sometimes the animal's hooves tread on a catfish. It's battered and injured, and the marabou storks finish it off. So wherever they go, the great herds stamp out their mark on the land, and all the other creatures are drawn into the pattern they create. It's the end of August. The riverbeds have almost dried out, and the wildebeest travel along them looking for the remaining pools. Ahead of them, there is water, more than they need. 100 miles away, up in the hills, there has been a freak storm. Now the water is rolling down the empty riverbed, down towards the herds which are coming this way. Within minutes, what was a small, dry gully has become a river, and one that the wildebeest have to cross. So far, the river is still fairly low, the current not too fast, and wildebeest are good swimmers. But the water keeps rising, the current gets faster and stronger, and starts to sweep them away, one by one. Not all of them drown. These have taken refuge on a mud bank. But as more and more squeeze onto it for safety, the mud is churned up beneath them. The healthy ones will swim off again, but the old, the weak, and the very young slide down and do not get up. The animals have no choice, they have to cross, and most of them do. Only a few do not make it. It looks like a massacre, but there are more than 1 million wildebeest on this trek. In the numbers in which these animals are born and die, this is a handful, a minor event on the long march, just a few fallen by the wayside, left for the fish and vultures to pick down to the bones. These young bulls have come across a cheetah. She can't hurt them. They're too many and too big. She has to settle for a mock charge. They can't really hurt her either, but they have her right out in the open, away from cover. Too good a chance to miss. And all she can do is pretend somehow that they just aren't there. It is September now. Dry grass, yellow and shriveled by the summer sun, but still nutritious, until it too is swept away from them, for this is the time the Serengeti goes up in flames. The grass fires burn every year. They aren't a danger to the wildebeest. If the flames get too near, they can always move away. Only the smaller creatures suffer as the fires drive them out of hiding and as others arrive to take advantage of their plight. The storks fly in from miles around at the sight of smoke to walk just ahead of the flames, picking off the insects and small reptiles as they try to make their escape. But although the wildebeest are in no physical danger, the grass they need is going. The smoke fills the plain. There is darkness in the middle of the day. Every year, thousands of square miles burn to ash. The grass will grow again. Within a few days, green shoots will start to sprout. But they will not be enough. For the wildebeest, the plain that was rich in food has become an empty bowl of dust. Because of the hardships of the dry season, the herds are already in poor condition. Now they reach their lowest ebb. They have no choice. Once again, they move on. And so the pattern of trails trodden out by a million hooves leads away from the scorched earth, away once more to the north, where yet again the wildebeest hope they will find grass. As far north, in fact, as they can go, right up to the Mara River and the steep escarpments that are the northern limits of the Serengeti, a point only 200 miles from the end of their journey. They have already had to walk and gallop almost 1,000 circuitous miles to reach this point, and as they go, the vultures go with them, overhead, silently, watching and waiting. Food for themselves, food for others. That is the theme of the herds as they cross the land. But it's a movable feast. The lions, for example, can only feed on the herd when it travels through their territory. The vultures have the freedom of the air where there are no territories. And so wherever the herds go, they go, cruising effortlessly on the thermals, up and then down. One of the commonest is the Ruppel's griffon, and all of them nest and roost on these cliffs in the southeast corner of the Serengeti. Every morning, once the sun has touched the plain and there is warm air rising to meet them, they launch themselves out and away to spend the day cruising over the herds. Sometimes they may ride the thermals for as far as 200 miles a day. It depends where the herds are. But wherever they are, the vultures will find them. Another dead wildebeest has served its purpose. But even after the vultures and other scavengers have finished, there is still another creature that lives off the dead. A small moth, a first cousin of the ordinary clothes moth, lays its eggs on the horns, and inside the dark horn material, the cycle takes place. The eggs turn into caterpillars, which burrow into the horn, and there they feed. In the course of time, they reappear on the surface and start to shed their skins, and so out of the dead horn comes a new life. But all this has been happening in the one that was left behind. The herds themselves are already miles away. They're moving across the north now, where there are more trees, thicker bush, a new kind of country, and a new kind of predator. The leopard likes to take its kill up a tree for safety. At least that's what it likes to do. But although the leopard, like the cheetah, only preys on calves, these are nearly a year old now and are getting a bit big. So he drags it off, disembowels it, and then comes back for a second attempt. If he doesn't get the carcass up, there's a good chance hyenas or a lion will steal it. So he eats some, and then, late that evening, comes back for a third and final try. Now safe from scavengers, it will last him a few days. Then he'll return to the herd for another, for as long as the wildebeest stay in his territory. But that won't be for much longer. October has gone, and out on the plains, where the wild dogs have been existing on the few gazelle that never leave, there is a sign of hope. For them and for the wildebeest, and for all the other creatures that are parched and dry, the rains have come, and life can start again. Down in the south, the plains are green, the waterholes full, waiting for the return of the herds. There is grass in plenty for them up here in the north too. But now that everywhere is green, they prefer the shorter species that grow on the plains. And the open plains, with no cover for predators, are a safer place for the calves that are soon to be born. Another more immediate reason for moving is that these northern areas get just too much rain. The land becomes flooded and waterlogged, and the wildebeest, if they stayed, would soon get foot rot. And so, slipping and sliding, they swing south on the last leg of their march and move back to the plains. They don't go back in the same great herds in which they left. Instead, they split up into long, straggling lines as they make their way south. But one thing stays the same. They still cover much of the ground at a run. and the road to the plains is paved with gold. Their journey is by no means over, but now that they have reached open country, they're much more relaxed. No more the milling, tight-packed, rolling-eyed herds that race through the bush country. Here, on the rich volcanic plains, they can spread out and graze. There are more obstacles ahead, but the pace is slower now, and there is time to put back the weight lost in the long, dry season. But for some, it is their last journey. This one is suffering from turning disease. A species of botfly lays its eggs in the wildebeest's nostrils. Usually, the maggots are sneezed out onto the ground, but sometimes one travels upwards and into the brain. And there it upsets the animal's sense of balance. So the wildebeest starts to walk in circles and carries on walking until it dies. Sometimes they run instead, trying frantically to keep their balance. It makes no difference. The end is always the same. The hyenas have already marked him out. Whenever there is a creature behaving strangely on the plains, there are always other animals alert to wonder why. While it can, the wildebeest will fight. But the hyenas are in no hurry. When there are enough of them, they will make their move. A snarling, savage death, but perhaps a better one than turning slowly in circles until you can turn no more. And for every wildebeest that dies, others are being born. Born in the open, where it can easily be spotted by predators, the calf has only minutes to get to its feet and learn to run. Within 5 minutes it can stand, and in less than 15 it can run as fast as its mother. This one is going to be safe, and because it is the firstborn of the year, the herd comes to inspect it. Soon the novelty will wear off, as it tends to when you have more than 250,000 children a year. For the wildebeest, safety is numbers. Giving birth, they're alone, and in more danger than at any other time in their lives. They seem to know it, and so do others. But the predators aren't the main cause of death among the small calves. Most of them die simply because they get lost. It happens all too easily when a huge herd stampedes and the lost calf, desperate for company, tries to find it again. Everyone's hand is against him, not just the gazelles. Even another wildebeest who has lost her calf will chase off one that's not her own. Just sometimes a miracle happens. Hope for a moment, but a false hope. She isn't the mother either. Then, incredibly, among all those animals, and after all that random chasing around all those square miles of plain, literally by a chance in a million, this one finds his mother again. And this time he had better stay close. The herds have one more move to make, and for the calves, the greatest danger of all is still to come. They're making their way towards two lakes, Masek and Lagadja, that lie on the western edge of the plains. They're not particularly large by African standards, only a couple of miles long. The herds could easily walk round them, but they choose to go straight across. Most years it doesn't matter, the lakes are shallow enough to wade. But there has been heavy rain this year. The wildebeest are going to have to swim, and this includes the young calves. And they can swim perfectly well, that isn't the problem. The danger is that they get left behind, separated from their mothers, and have to find them again. Soon there are hundreds of them lost on the shore, and all the time more adults and more calves are swimming steadily across the lake. As the herds pile up, the confusion starts to build. And then one female decides to swim back to see if her calf is on the other side. Others, seeing her go, join in. Perhaps the one they're looking for is on the other side too. Soon there is a pointless procession crossing and recrossing the lake. Calves looking for mothers, mothers looking for calves, and all passing each other somewhere out in the middle. With each crossing, the weak get weaker and slip below the surface. But that doesn't stop the ritual, a profligate pilgrimage that only the wildebeest could afford, and one that in this case went on for 7 days. And then, at dawn on the 8th day, the last sacrificial calf splashed ashore. And as it did, it ran through the bodies of 1,500 dead calves lying in the shallows, while another 1,500 ran bleating through the bush. This waste of life seems senseless, but there are so many wildebeest that if the weak and the young did not die in such numbers, they would overrun the plains. And as always, even the dead have their part to play. The leopard watches the calves go by. He's already heavy-bellied, and his larder is overflowing. The bodies of those that died in the lake will enrich the water, making it a better place for the flamingos and other wading birds. And the bleached bones, washed up onto the shore, are perfect camouflage for the little sand plover and her nest. So now, at last, the wildebeest are home, back on the plains, green and welcome in an April mist. Soon the year will turn full circle, and the whole reckless spectacle will begin again. But now the herds are at peace with the grass, and a solitary bull grunting quietly on his new territory finds no challengers. This is the Wildebeeste Gorge, a deep winding gash that runs for miles across the eastern plains. The wildebeest cross it every year, but it's no obstacle for even the youngest calves. And the gorge itself testifies that they have been doing the same thing for some time. For Wildebeeste is rich in fossil remains. And some of the fossils show that wildebeest have been plentiful here for 2 million years, and during those 2 million years have remained almost unchanged. But there are fossils of another creature here too, one that started from shuffling ape-like beginnings and has become the most powerful creature on Earth, man. The wildebeest haven't changed in all that time. They haven't needed to. For though they may find some bizarre ways to die, they've also found a spectacularly successful way to live. The numbers that fall to predators, disease, and natural calamities are the very means by which members of the species are refined. The great herds go on. The whole flamboyant, chaotic spectacle actually works, and works well, year after year. But it's a way of life that demands space, enormous space. Space that one day will be needed by that other creature that grew up here at Wildebeeste. For now, the herds go on, careering headlong through 2 million years of history, theirs and ours, and scattering it as carelessly as they scatter their dead along the march. On they go, the wildebeest, the clown, and the king of the plains. There is a saying in Africa that somewhere there is a place where the grass meets the sky, and the name of that place is the end. May the grass of the Serengeti never reach the sky. May every year be the year of the wildebeest.